He was convicted of smuggling weapons into our city 3 years ago, but tonight he's still on the loose, and a cash reward is being offered to anyone who helps bring him in. Let's go live now to Toronto Police Headquarters. That's where we find our Shauna Hunt. And Shauna, we've talked a lot about Toronto's gun problem lately, and now we have a push to put one of Toronto's most wanted back behind bars.
Yes, and Cynthia, the man police are looking for is not a suspect. He's a convicted criminal connected to dozens of illegal guns that have been taken off the streets of Toronto. And right now he should be locked up in a prison cell serving a 9-year sentence.
Gun violence has reached an unprecedented and unacceptable level in our country. At the root of this phenomenon are the guns themselves. And at the root of these guns are unscrupulous individuals like Kamar Cunningham.
Police say the 39-year-old has smuggled dozens of guns into the country, weapons that are connected to violent crimes here in Toronto. Kamar Cunningham was one of 75 people arrested during Project Patton back in 2018, an investigation that targeted the violent street gang, the 5 Point Generals, and led to the largest seizure of guns in Toronto's history.
We're talking here about someone who had repeatedly shown a disregard for a rule of law.
Nearly 3 years ago, Cunningham was convicted of several firearms trafficking charges, but is nowhere to be found after failing to show up to his sentencing hearing. Toronto Police Superintendent Steve Watt says he slipped through the cracks of the justice system.
He has been released on bail 3 times. Each time he has violated his release conditions before being arrested and released on bail again.
Police say Cunningham is one of Canada's most wanted criminals and should be considered armed and dangerous. He is now being highlighted by the Be on the Lookout program known as BOLO and is being profiled on 6 giant billboards in the GTA. A cash reward of $50,000 is up for grabs and will go to the person who provides the tip that puts him back behind bars.
He is still currently in the GTA, but I would say probably 100% under an assumed identity. The gang that he was affiliated with, the gang that Project Patton focused on, was a very entrenched and well-established gang that actually has ties nationally and internationally. So they do have the capacity and they do have the ability to, create, obviously, aliases and assumed identities.
Now, Shauna, this is one of those cases that is hard to believe and speaks to the growing calls for bail reform. Premier Doug Ford, for example, has been speaking a lot about that issue.
And yeah, Cynthia, so this is, a prime example of the revolving door that we hear so much about when it comes to suspects connected to things like gun violence. The issue is these people get arrested, they're granted bail, and some go on to reoffend. Now, this case is pretty extreme. Cunningham violated bail conditions 3 times and was still allowed to be out in the community leading up to his sentencing hearing. We do know that Toronto's police chief is one of those voices also calling for bail reform. But Cynthia, this would have to come from the federal government.